is Kiana Pete, one of your shift specialists with the Anne Arundel County Department of Aging and Disabilities State Health Insurance Assistance Program, also known as SHIP. As you all know, it is Protect Week here in Maryland. And knowing that, it is important to understand what Medicare fraud is and how we can avoid it. I hope you enjoyed today's videos as well as the fraud and health tips at the end. We miss you all so much and hope to see you soon. Bye.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, the Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
Hello. I'm Leah from Social Security. Thanks for joining us today. A closed caption version of this Facebook Live will be available after our broadcast. It's National Slam the Scam Day, a day where we raise awareness about government imposter scams. Did you know Social Security phone scams are the #1 type of fraud reported to the Federal Trade Commission? So tonight, we're teaming up with our Office of the Inspector General and the Federal Trade Commission to help slam the scam during National Consumer Protection Week. We wanted to share tips with you on how to avoid government imposter scams. Joining us for today's conversation are Gail S. Innes, Inspector General for Social Security, and Monica Vaca, Associate Director of the Consumer Response and Operations at the Federal Trade Commission. Please tell us a little about yourself and tell our audience what Slam the Scam Day is.
Sure. As you said, I am the Inspector General for Social Security. My office helps prevent waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security's programs and operations. We do that by conducting independent audits and investigations and working with the agency and Congress to improve Social Security for everyone who depends on it. For the past year, we have been working very hard to combat telephone scams that misuse the good name of Social Security to mislead people. I created a National Slam the Scam Day so we could harness the collective power of the federal government to reach as many people as possible and educate them about these scams so they won't become victims. We picked a day during National Consumer Protection Week because this effort is all about protecting consumers of all ages and all backgrounds, not only from Social Security scams, but all types of government imposter scams.
Thanks for that information, Gail. And speaking of National Consumer Protection Week, Monica, can you tell us a little about yourself and describe National Consumer Protection Week?
Thank you so much for having us today. So I have spent the last 18 years of my career fighting fraud at the Federal Trade Commission, and National Consumer Protection Week is an important piece of fighting fraud. So this is a time that we can help people understand their consumer protection rights, how they can make well-informed decisions about money, and how to avoid scams. National Consumer Protection Week is a coordinated campaign that brings together government agencies with national organizations, state and local partners to offer resources that help people learn about consumer protection issues. National Consumer Protection Week offers consumer education materials, as well as events in various states and communities throughout the country. Every year, National Consumer Protection Year runs the first full week of March. So this year, it's March 1st through the 7th, this week.
Great. So let's talk about the types of scams we're seeing specifically. How does it work and how can people prevent themselves from falling victim? Also, how can the public help slam the scam?
There are many versions of these scams, too many to list, but there are several common themes to the calls we hear about. The scammer tries to convince you they are a government official. They might appear to be calling from a government phone number, email you fake documents, or use an actual official's name or title they got from a website. They threaten some type of legal action unless you pay them right away, or they offer some kind of service in exchange for payment. They want that payment in unconventional forms. They want you to buy retail gift cards, make wire transfers, use internet currency like Bitcoin, or even mail them cash. Once people know how to identify scams, we are asking them to slam the scam by hanging up the phone or ignoring the call. It's that simple. We are working to investigate the scams, but they are not going to go away entirely. The most effective weapon we have against scammers is education and prevention. We are also asking people to talk to their family and friends about phone scams. We can't reach everyone. We need the public's help to protect all Americans.
Monica, what about at FTC? What are you seeing at your agency, and how can people protect themselves and their loved ones from these fraudulent schemes?
Sure. So when we're talking about government imposter scams, we're talking about scammers who are using the name of any government agency to try to convince people to send them money or to give them your personal information. They might be using today the name of the Social Security Administration, but they also use the name of the IRS, the FBI, Veterans Affairs, Medicare. We're concerned about scammers who might begin using the census to try to scam people, and they also use the name of the Federal Trade Commission. So what do? They sometimes pretend to be government officials, and their goal, again, is to try to get your money. They're trying to get you to send them money or to give them your personal information. How does it work? Well, they threaten you. They might threaten you with arrest or with a lawsuit if you don't pay a supposed debt. Those are scary calls. They might do the opposite. They might tell you that you've won something. You've won the lottery. You've won sweepstakes. And you just need to pay some taxes or some fees in order to be able to claim that money. But regardless of the tactic, the goal is still the same: to get you to send them money primarily, or sometimes to get your personal information. Don't do it. Federal government agencies and federal employees do not ask people to wire money. They do not ask people to buy gift cards, to pay off taxes or fees or fines or anything else. So let me show you a little bit now what the data looks like. We collect complaints from people from across the country, and what you're looking at is a map of the United States. And on that map, you'll see that there are some bars underneath it that tell you a little bit about the top reports that people make to us about consumer protection problems. The number one scam that was reported to the Federal Trade Commission in 2019 was imposter scams. And if we look at this a little bit more closely, what we learn about that is that government imposters are really what's driving that trend. We had huge numbers of complaints in 2019 about government imposter scams. It was the top fraud type, and it has been the top fraud type since 2014. So this is something that scammers are using because it works, right? Because they're getting a lot of money out of people. The top payment methods these scammers are asking for are gift cards and wire transfers. And the top way that they're contacting you is over the phone. Let's talk a little bit about the harm that they cause. So you're looking now at an image, and it's showing you that for 2019, the number of imposter reports that we received, but also it's going to tell you for the Social Security Administration imposter scam, how many reports we got at the Federal Trade Commission. It was off the charts, 166,000 reports about this scam. look at the amount of money that people lost. In the aggregate, more than $37 million that people lost to the scam. And now what does this mean to an individual person? To an individual person, the median dollar loss on one of these scams was $1,500. That's a huge amount of money for anybody to lose. And so we really, really want people to be aware of these scams, to know the kind of harm that they can do, and to talk about it, especially if you've received one of these calls. Talk about it with your family, with your community.
Gail, could you share more on Social Security imposter scams and the various versions of it?
A scam usually starts with an unsolicited phone call about a problem with your Social Security number or account. The caller may threaten arrest or other legal action that can only be avoided with an immediate payment. They may offer to increase your benefits for a fee or offer to protect your assets from identity theft by transferring them to a protected bank account. They often demand secrecy in dealing with the problem they're calling about, telling you to make up a story to tell your family or bank or store employees. I recently testified before Congress about these calls. I shared a story of a young mother who paid a scammer over $9,000 in iTunes gift cards because she was threatened with prison. We also heard from a 75-year-old who lost over $250,000 to a scammer who pretended to be a police officer.
Monica, can you tell us a little more about what you're seeing at FTC?
Sure. So in some situations, we see scammers using intense emotions like excitement or fear to cloud a person's judgment. And that's really what they're trying to do, is to stoke those emotions, scare their victims, and pressure them into making these, what these can really be life-altering decisions in some instances. One particular tactic that we do see is that these scammers will try to keep somebody on the phone for a very long period of time. And as long as they've got them on the phone, they're giving them directions and telling them what to do. Go drive to the Walgreens, go drive to the Walmart, go buy these gift cards. And so those are the instances where I can say a lot of people do lose quite a lot of money.
Thank you, Monica. Let's see if we can play a real-life scam call so you know what they sound like. Listen in now.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division toll-free number, that is 1-888-952-5554. I repeat, 1-888-952-5554. Verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security number when you call to better assist you with this issue. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
Gail, can you talk about what Social Security does or can never do when interacting with the public?
Social Security does call people occasionally, but it's usually in connection with some ongoing business that you have with the agency, like when you file a claim for benefits. If you file a retirement claim online, the agency may call you to confirm details. If you file a disability claim, the state disability examiner may call you to schedule a medical appointment. There are limited circumstances, and you should recognize the reason for the call. If you don't, be extremely cautious. If you do owe money to Social Security, they will send you a letter in the mail with your payment options and your rights to appeal that decision. Social Security will never ask for payment with gift cards or other hard-to-trace forms like Bitcoin, wire transfers, or cash. We've recently gotten reports about scam text messages, so I want to stress that Social Security will only send text messages when you opt in or request to receive them. Social Security will also never demand secrecy from you in dealing with any type of problem. You should always consult trusted family or friends in making any decisions related to Social Security.
Monica, can you weigh in on this?
Sure. So if you get one of these calls, what we would urge you to do first is take a breath, just pause, then up, Don't press in your social security number to a scammer, or maybe you're worried because the scammer already had your social security number when they called you. We invite you to visit identitytheft.gov/SSA. That page will tell you a little bit more about these types of scams, and it will give you some information on what you can do if you're worried that a scammer has your personal information. It'll also give you the opportunity to report if your identity has already been misused in some way. And you can file that identity theft report again on identitytheft.gov. And we've got an image here for you of that identitytheft.gov website. So please go ahead and look at that and take note of that, because that is something that has lots and lots of resources for recovering from identity theft.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with Gail S. Innes, Inspector General for Social Security, and Monica Vaca, Associate Director, Consumer Response and Operations at the Federal Trade Commission. We're talking imposter scams and what you should do to protect yourself and your loved ones against falling victim to them. Gail and Monica will be taking live questions shortly, so please feel free to drop a question in the comment section below. However, please do not post personally identifiable information here or on any social media. Reporting is a very important aspect of curbing these imposter scams. Can you both share on that aspect as well?
Yes, reporting calls is important because it gives us data points to work with in analyzing scam trends, and it allows us to take steps to block scam techniques like spoofing when they cover up their real phone number with a fake one. We also use the data to identify investigative leads, which could help identify criminal entities or individuals participating in or facilitating the scams. Ultimately, these efforts disrupt the scammers, help reduce this type of fraud, and reduce the number of victims. We want the public to report Social Security scam calls to oig.ssa.gov.
Monica, should they also report these calls to the FTC?
Sure, we'd love to get your reports about these calls at the FTC, and again, that's ftc.gov/complaint, and so we invite you to do that as well.
We're now ready to take your live questions, so feel free to send them in using the comment section below. Do not post personally identifiable information here or on any social media. Okay. Is SSA or Medicare selling our information, and is that why we're getting these scam calls?
Leah, I can take that question. Neither SSA, nor Medicare, nor Medicaid, nor any government agency will be selling your personally identifiable information. Sometimes when scammers call potential victims, they may have some of your personally identifiable information already. It hasn't come from the government. It may have come from the dark web, which people may have heard of, through one or more of the various data breaches that you've read about in the press in public and private sector. But you can rest assured that we do everything we can at the agency to protect people's information, not sell it.
Thanks.
Look live at the website, go to the FTC website and educate yourself so that you understand what a scam call looks like and what tactics the scammers use, so that you can understand what they're trying to do and just hang up the phone, and then you can educate your friends and family to do the same.
Thanks. Has SSA caught anyone yet?
SSA, my Office of the Inspector General and many other federal agencies, including the Department of Justice, along with many other federal partners, are working very hard on trying to catch these scammers. Recently, you may have seen, we and the DOJ announced civil injunctions against certain companies that allow calls to come into the United States from overseas, and these are scam calls. And those civil injunctions are working their way through the court system, and hopefully those will prevent those two companies from operating the way they've done business. We're looking for other types of companies, and we're also pursuing with our investigative partners any other options that we have to try to stop the scammers.
Monica, will FTC contact you from like SSA's 800 number?
No, the FTC will never contact you from the SSA's 800 number. You can call the FTC to get information. You can go on the FTC's website, but we will not call you from that 800 number. If you file a complaint with the FTC, sometimes we will have investigators call you back to ask you for more information about that complaint. If we do that, we're going to have the reference number that we gave you when you filed that complaint, and that's how you know it's us.
Good info. I like that. Okay. What's the progress on scam calls? This person's spouse has gotten 3 calls and they want them to stop. How do they make that happen?
Yeah, so a few things. First of all, you can always register for the Do Not Call registry, and you can do that by going to donotcall.gov. donotcall.gov is the place where you register. It's also the place where you can file a complaint about getting these unwanted calls. And we really do want people to file complaints about those unwanted calls. It's an important report because we make available to the public and really to the telecom industry and to the call blocking technology industry information about the calls that people report every day. So when you report a violation of the Do Not Call laws because you are registered or because you received a robocall, when you report that to the FTC, we make the information about the phone number that called you available to the people who are developing call blocking solutions. So do tell us about those calls you're getting. It's an important part of the solution.
That's great. For the both of you, what can somebody do if they're hacked? You know, all of their information's out there. Or if they think that, you know, a scammer has their social security number or personally identifiable information, what do they do?
Yeah, well, we do have a page on that. So it is at identitytheft.gov/SSA. If you're worried that a scammer has your personal information, what you should do is start looking at your credit report. Monitor your credit report carefully. You have the right to get your free credit report from all 3 credit bureaus and check it out. See what's going on. See if there's any unauthorized activity on your account. You can also implement a credit freeze if you're worried about that, so that somebody isn't using your name and your information to establish new accounts.
Let me just add that sometimes when the scammers call, it's very interesting, but by the end of the call, the victim doesn't really remember whether they actually gave the scammer the number. They're very manipulative and they understand psychology, and you may think they called you knowing all your information, but if you were to have recorded the call, you would have provided that information to them. So people have to be really careful and thoughtful, and as Monica said, take a deep breath before you start answering questions, because by the end of the call you may have thought that they had information that you actually provided them.
Thanks. We appreciate that. So have you guys seen if scammers are like targeting a specific population?
Well, I can answer from the SSA, scam reports that we've received from our online complaint form at oig.ssa.gov. We've been looking at some of that type of information to understand whether there are trends demographically or geographically, and frankly, so far we don't see that many trends. In other words, they're targeting everyone. Our belief is that they randomly call until they get someone on the phone who's willing to talk, and they're not necessarily targeting populations, but we understand from the FTC that there may be certain populations that are more likely to answer the call, or certain populations that may succumb and lose more funds. And Monica can probably address that more.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, I think we're seeing so many of these calls because it is so cheap to make these telephone calls. It is incredibly cheap for scammers to make these telephone calls, and that's why we are all getting them multiple calls just like this on our phones every single day. Now, with respect to the question about, who's falling for these scams, what we see generally, generally, what we see is that people who are younger, people in their 20s, are more likely to report to us that they lost money when they file a report with us. And people who are over 60 are more likely to report that they lost no money, which is very interesting, right? They file more reports, but they tell us more frequently that they lost no money. So that's very interesting. That tells us that some of the older consumers are doing a great job recognizing fraud, avoiding any injury, and then reporting it. And that's exactly what we want them to do. Now here's the rub. When somebody who is in their 70s and 80s does lose money, what we see from our reporting data is that they're reporting losing a lot of money, a lot more money than the people in their 20s and 30s are reporting losing. So we all have to be very careful, but it's really, really important for all of us to understand that we are all vulnerable to this type of fraud. It's not just affecting one population, it's affecting everyone.
Thanks. Someone says, my boyfriend got his phone activated and a couple hours later he received a call from a guy claiming he was from the Social Security office. How did they get my boyfriend's number?
Again, we don't think they have any magic information. They are just cold calling, probably even with computer-generated calls, and it's a volume business. So they just generate millions and millions and millions of calls on a daily basis until they get someone to pick up. So they don't really know anybody's particular phone number. They just mine those phone numbers and have computer-generated calling. .gov so that we can learn the information, and frankly, we are working closely often with local and state and federal law enforcement, so reporting to any agency is the right thing to do.
For Monica, do you know if the website NOMOROBO.com, NomoRobo,
yes,
or similar websites will capture these scam calls? This person uses it and they're not getting similar calls at the moment.
Yeah, so NomoRobo is a call blocking company. And that is one thing that you can do as a consumer, is look for a call blocking solution. There are lots of companies that sell that service. NomoRobo actually won an FTC challenge. The FTC put out a challenge to developers to see who could develop a solution. This was many, many years ago. NomoRobo was one of the winners.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Okay, so last question. Monica, what can I do to help my family and my friends avoid these scams?
So the number one thing that you can do to help your family and friends avoid scams is to talk about the scams. Talk about those horribly annoying robocalls that you receive, especially the ones like the kind we heard during this program. Talk about the fact that you got something that sounded a little scary, that said it had detected criminal activity on your Social Security number. Talk about that, because if you talk about that, they will also recognize that they got that same call and they're not alone, right? Yeah. What we have learned from the research is that people are able to avoid scams when they know about a specific scam. Mm-hmm. That knowledge is what keeps that money in your pocket and doesn't, make sure that it doesn't get to that scammer. So share that knowledge, talk about it, and make sure people know that they can come to you if they encounter that same kind of a scam, and that there is a place to report it to the federal government.
Well, it looks like we just ran out of time. Monica and Gail, do you have any closing comments?
Well, I just want to thank all of our federal partners who are helping us get the word out about Slam the Scam, because it might affect people today when they're calling about Social Security. Years ago it was the IRS, tomorrow it will be another federal agency, so we all have to work together to try to educate the public to combat these scams.
And for people who want to learn more about scams, I invite them to visit us at ftc.gov/subscribe. The SSA, remember that if you're worried about identity theft, you can always visit us at identitytheft.gov/SSA.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for, coming and doing this Facebook Live. And thank you for joining us and helping us slam the scam during National Consumer Protection Week. To get the latest tips to protect you and your family, please sign up for updates at our Social Security Matters blog at blog.ssa.gov. Please check out this video from the FTC.
I got a phone call. Someone identified himself as a representative of the Social Security office, and that a warrant, a no bail warrant, had been issued for my arrest. I'm 83 years old and it scared me to death.
The Social Security imposter scam is very widespread right now. What these scammers are trying to do is they're trying to induce a state of fear. They're trying to make you feel very, very panicked.
They actually said federal authorities, including an armed marshal, would appear at my door within the next 24 hours. That had me sort of feeling jittery.
Sometimes they'll ratchet up that anxiety by telling you that there are marshals or police officers or sheriff's deputies that are about to arrest you. That's very, very scary for people. So what they're doing is they're playing on your fear, on your anxiety, the next actions that you take.
And they told me to get in my car, drive to the store, and get a Google Play card and put the $500 on it and give them the number.
Once they've got those PIN numbers, they've got your money. So how do you take control back? Well, the first thing you want to do is just stop and take a breath. Take a moment and say, okay, thanks for the call. I need to investigate what's going on here. Hang up the phone. Go talk with somebody that you trust. Do a search on the internet.
When it happens, let other people know, because the more that it's talked about, the better armed people are to behave assertively when somebody's behaving aggressively toward them.
Since then, I have told everyone that I know and a whole lot of people that I don't know.
This scam is hitting all parts of the United States, and it is hitting people at every age level, every education level, every income level. If this isn't happening to you, this is happening to your neighbors. This is happening in your community. So, if it does happen to you, please talk about it. We know that when people are familiar with scams, they are much less likely to lose money. Report it to the FTC at ftc.gov/complaint.